Let's bring the Security Council on screen. And here is the United States Deputy Permanent Representative to the Security Council giving what looks like a Nazi salute. I'm sure it wasn't. He was putting his hand up to vote, to invoke the veto against a ceasefire in Gaza. So let's just have a look at the result of the vote.
The result of the vote is as follows. 13 votes in favour, 1 against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has not been approved due to the veto of a permanent member of the Security Council.
So the draft resolution for a ceasefire didn't go through. This is Barbara Woodward, the UK's permanent representative to the UN. Now, she's very excited that the UK has not used the veto for many decades. And of course, Britain refuses to do so. But this is what she said: calling for a ceasefire ignores the fact that Hamas has committed acts of terror and is still holding civilians hostage. So that's her attitude and the British attitude. So here is Robert Wood, who held his hand up to invoke the veto in this case. He said this: the text also of the resolution failed to acknowledge that Israel has the right to defend itself. So he's just ignoring the Fourth Geneva Convention because, of course, Israel doesn't have that right as an occupying power. António Guterres then tweeted this out yesterday. This week, I urged the Security Council to press to avert a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, and I reiterated my appeal for humanitarian ceasefire. Regrettably, the Security Council failed to do it, but that doesn't make it less necessary. I promise I will not give up. So that was what he was saying. Now, the issue of UN Security Council reform has been one that the United States and particularly the United Kingdom have been pushing for a very long time. And as a result of this veto, they are using the excuse of there being no ceasefire vote to call for reform of the UN Security Council again. So they want it to be expanded. They want the veto to be removed in particular. And the UK, as I say, has been pushing on this for quite some time. But up until now, it's all been about the fact that Russia and China have been using the veto. So this is going back to July 2012, just to give an example. Explanation of vote on draft Syria resolution vetoed by Russia and China. And this was Britain complaining that Russia and China were basically vetoing the regime change operation in Syria. So I'm just going to put this on screen for people to consider. And that is that Russia and China have used their veto to prevent war. But the West, and I'm talking the United States here, has used its veto to prevent peace. And that is pretty much the situation at the moment. But this is a long-standing effort to get the UN Security Council reformed because it isn't giving permission to the West in particular to pursue its regime change operations. And I think this is a pretty cynical use of it. That the United States continues to veto every effort to get a ceasefire in Gaza in order to pursue this particular agenda.
I've got a quick question for you, Mark. Would it be reasonable to expect that if there's going to be a major vote in the UN, such as that particular one, that America's vote would actually be discussed within the Senate or Congress in order for the proper democratic process to take place? We seem to be having these decisions that are made in the UN, and nobody's too sure who actually approved the decision that any particular country makes. In this case, it's the US, but we've also seen this with UK, that serious decisions are forced through the UN, but they're never discussed in Westminster, for example.
There have been times, I believe Ron Paul, the well-known Texas congressman, Republican with a libertarian streak, would occasionally bring up UN matters and try to be the voice of Congress, at least to a degree on that. It doesn't happen often enough, if it happens at all, Brian. Certainly, maybe Thomas Massey, since he's willing to be the gadfly and willing to take all that fire, maybe he'll do it, maybe others, Bernie Sanders perhaps even. I may even place some calls this week. It might be a good idea to those offices and ask them, if what they think about the UN's actions, the U.S. context in that. So, a good question.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Right, now let's move